There's one
Okay.
there for Anita.
Okay, thank you.
The Chief Strong is here. Or will you introduce them?
I need to have lunch with them. I'll get the names for you. I'll get the names for you.
I was told Chief Strong is here from James Cree, Chief Constant from Peter Chan. And then we got a couple of else.
If I could have everyone please rise and have the Digging Bear drummers.
Hey!
Thank you. You may be seated. Tansei, ni wago maganak ni tutumak, Diana kimaj ni stigasu, sapatawia kochinia, kananaskom tenawa gakyo. Good afternoon, everyone. It is my honor to be here today to serve as your co-MC. I'd like to bring greetings on behalf of Saskatchewan Polytechnic and welcome all our friends and relatives that witness this very sacred event of being bestowed this beautiful blanket. You'll hear the stories that are attached to this blanket, that all these matriarchs, these grandmothers, these women that put their time and energy into this beautiful quilt, and they will tell their story. I would like to acknowledge that we are here gathered on Treaty 6 territory, the ancestral lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Dakota, Lakota peoples, and the traditional homeland of the Métis. I'm so pleased that all of you could be here with us today. I would like to thank the Digging Bear drummers for the honor song this afternoon. I want to extend a special welcome to our special guests, acknowledging the women that put all their efforts and time and love into this beautiful sacred quilt. The chief, the bound counselors, MLA Jamie Martin, that all are taking their time in their afternoon. To begin our program in a good way, I'd like to invite Elder Rick Daniels to bring an Indigenous blessing.
Dista nanas komando motora hanska Peter kuta ego mota tarka gup nanas kompnan Sask Polytech kamami ji moke kwa o ta si no ko wi so ne he wa ko sky ko ta big star box chik a se mi na nanas kompnan ham ta na e chim ta na ma no so ta ka be wi ta mi a ke we see we see how to nature na pita manoma e wa na nas ma ka ko skok kami usita chigo moto bla akop we chim nan ka kyo si no mina puite kana to ke situsko ka kyo si no puite situsko we wa na me ko chim tan now.
Thank you, Elder Rick. It is now my pleasure to invite our President and CEO, Dr. Larry Rosia, to come forward and speak on behalf of Saskatchewan Polytechnic.
Well, thank you, Deanna, and good afternoon, everyone. Tuau Haukota and Insikwa Tenchi Atlanate. What a privilege it is to witness and be part of today's special ceremony. We are honored, actually we're humbled by the presence of our special guests, the women of James Smith Cree Nation. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your trust in us. I want to thank the drummers as well, Digging Bear drummers. Thank you for starting us out in a good way today. Thank you to the chiefs and counselors who are attending this afternoon to join us for this very special ceremony. And of course, thank you to Elder Rick, who led us through a smudging ceremony in our Indigenous Student Success Centre before we entered the Gymnasium here, and for the prayers today as well. Elder Rick, you always start us out in a very good way, so thank you for doing that and always being there for Saskatchewan Polytechnic. And thank you and welcome to everyone who's joined us here today as well on this very, very, I think, important day and something rememberable day for sure. Speaking of here, it's important as well, as we always do at Saskatchewan Polytechnic, is recognize and acknowledge the land that we're on today. We are on Treaty 6 territory, which are the ancestral lands of the Cree, the Saulteaux, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota peoples, and the traditional homeland of the Métis. Today, and every day, we recognize the rich Indigenous heritage of these lands and acknowledge with deep respect the contributions of the first and future keepers of those lands. As I said, today is a very noteworthy day, a meaningful day that moves each of us just a little further down the path towards reconciliation. In this way, and in so many other ways, the courage of this group of matriarchs is a true gift. The women sharing their stories of healing and resilience, sharing their truths, and turning over the care of this special creation that grew out of the healing to us for safekeeping is a gift, and not only a gift, it is an inspiration. Inspiration to our students today and to those for generations to come. Courage to overcome and to prevail through the most difficult of life's challenges. We at Saskatchewan Polytechnic are honored to receive and become the keepers of the Talking Quilt. It will remind us each day of the importance of truth in our reconciliation efforts. It will inform and strengthen our commitment to Mio-Akotoin and good relationships. It will symbolize and signify the resilience of our Indigenous communities and the Indigenous students, faculty, and staff who choose Saskatchewan Polytechnic. It is now my pleasure to turn the microphone over to the brave and generous women who've come today to honor us with this one-of-a-kind gift. I welcome you and I thank you for your trust, and that we will keep it safe. So over to you. Thank you.
Hi, miigwech, Dr. Rosia. I would like to now call forward the two women to come forward to tell you about the Talking Quilt and how it came to be here at Saskatchewan Polytechnic. Sandra Head from the James Smith Cree Nation and Eileen Zaba, one of our instructors in the nursing program.
Hi, my name is Eileen Zaba. I have a divided role at Sask Polytechnic. I am a full-time faculty member with the Psychiatric Nursing program, and I am involved in research. I expressed an interest in mental health research since my background has been, I was a clinician for 40 years in mental health, and I have had some previous research experience. So Caroline Hoffert, my program head at the time, suggested that I approach Lindsey Boechler because she was doing some research and it had some mental health within it. And that's where history started. I met with Lindsey and we started on the trail, and we met up with some wonderful people from James Smith. Michelle Pavlov and Kristen Arbor supported me in my research, and all of Polytech really did the leadership. So this ceremony is not about me, so I'm going to quit talking about me. It's about the incredible resilience and courage of these women that I had the privilege of meeting during my involvement with research on James Smith Cree Nation. We were invited to develop a framework for critical incidents response by the leadership of James Smith Cree Nation. And while I was at a local gas station, food and gas station out at James Smith Cree Nation, I struck up a conversation with Sandra. Sandra agreed to contribute to the research and be interviewed. The project, of course, was related to the mass casualties that happened on James Smith. This research project sought out to find answers for possible intervention, services, gaps in services, and develop the critical response framework for people in the future. After several meetings at the grocery and gas station on different occasions, Sandra shared with me about the Talking Quilt. She explained that the woman would go along the river and she would go along the river to heal from her trauma, and that their families had endured since the residential schools. It became clear that the Talking Quilt and the mass casualty incidents were somehow connected and essential to their truths. Sandra invited me to go along the river with her and learn more about the Talking Quilt. I asked if Lindsey could join us, and she was more than welcome to join us. We had a wonderful day of learning in a quiet, peaceful atmosphere on the land. We shared a meal of moose kebabs, thanks to Lindsey and her cooking, over the open fire. Sandra explained that the previous keepers of the Talking Quilt had died, and that this group of women required another keeper for their Talking Quilt. I suggested that Saskatchewan Polytechnic may be interested in being the keepers of their wonderful quilt. Students and faculty could learn about their truths and the important part of truth and reconciliation. Saskatchewan Polytechnic was approached and honored to be offered to be the quilt's keeper. While talking to these women, they shared that many of them are alumni from Saskatchewan Polytechnic. And the Saskatchewan Polytechnic journey, their journey in learning through Saskatchewan Polytechnic, had become a part of their healing journey, which was amazing to me. I thought, yes, the quilt does belong here. I want to talk again about how these incredibly courageous women have given a voice to truth, to the ongoing trauma and tragedy that they have lived through. Speaking of the horrible abuses that men as well as women experience through residential school. And after residential school, the integral part of healing, realizing the shame does not belong to them. It is also a part of stopping the cycle, making their children and their chapans aware of that abuse, and that abuse is not okay and not to be tolerated, and to speak up against it. I want to thank James Smith Cree Nation women for trusting me and allowing me to spend time with them. I will ask this wonderfully courageous woman, Sandra, to speak her truth and introduce her friends from James Smith Cree Nation. And I want to thank the leadership within Saskatchewan Polytechnic for supporting the truth and being the honored keepers of the Talking Quilt. I'm going to let you. Yes.
My name is Sandra Head. I'm from Peter Chapman Band within James Smith. We made this quilt in the year 2000 in Melfort, and it involved residential school survivors. And it was very difficult at times when we were making this quilt. Wait. It's okay to cry, sister. It's okay to cry. It's okay. Yeah. Cry if you need to cry. It's okay. It's okay to cry, sister. Take your time. Take your time, sister. One more time. Take your time. One more time. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you, my sister. When we were making this quilt, we shared many stories with the women that were involved. And even talking about the residential school back then, it was difficult for a lot of us because we had to talk about our experiences in the residence and how it affected all of us women. When we were making this quilt, we cried, we laughed, we shared stories. And I don't know how many months it took us, but we did a few presentations with the quilt. And it's very difficult to talk about this because it still affects us today. It affects me. And I had to learn to move on after we made the quilt. We all went our separate ways after the fact, and we put the blanket away for 20 years. And I didn't know what to do with the quilt because the keeper passed away. And so that's when I bumped into, can't even see her. Eileen. And so she offered this place because I didn't know what to do with it. And I'm glad that the quilt will be here. And the Talking Quilt was and is a vessel of healing. We came together, shared our stories to be heard. Some of us, this was the first time talking about our hurts and pains. The blanket has provided a space for us to heal. Now to a new resource for Polytech students. And we lost 3 women from the group. They passed away. One of them was Ruby Head, Albertine Mustus, and Sophia Tari. And they were a big part of the blanket. They were very vocal. And I would like to thank the women for showing up and being with us together. But I would like to introduce the women because they were a part of the quilt that we made. I don't know. If you could just stand up. Cosette Mustus. No, Brandy Sanderson, Joan Daniels, Cecile Mustus, Tina Mustus, Sharon Starblanket, Darlene Sanderson, Gina Head, Arlene Mustus, I would like to thank all these women for putting all their lives on this blanket that we all shared. Oh, and myself. And Rhonda Sanderson was a part of our blanket. So we had one square that we made on the left corner here. We put crosses on that one to honor the children that never made it back from the residential schools. And with that, I'm gonna ask if any of the women would like to come and share their stories.
I will.
If anybody. Okay, I'll get Rhonda to speak on behalf of her experience through the residential schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra.
Good afternoon. My name is Rhonda Sanderson. I'm from State Basin, that's part of the James Smith Cree Nation. I'm a third-generation residential school survivor. My grandparents went, my parents went, and so did me and my brothers. And when I was put in foster care, my foster parents attended St. Michael's. I had the unique experience of listening to my grandparents talk about their residential school, which was very little. All my granny could say about Onion Lake School was that we worked hard. And Onion Lake was called an industrial school, and it should have been called child labor. They made kids work, kids, 6 years old, sometimes 5, get up 6 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock, sometimes 5, to go and get wood in minus 40, minus 42 weather with a horse and sleigh. Not a car, no blankets. That was their job. And they could have only been about maybe 10 years old. And it was their job to gather firewood for the residents. My grandfather didn't talk too much about his experience. He was part of the generation that they didn't talk about it. They had a very strong don't talk, don't trust, don't feel, don't cry for no reason. And when my parents went, they attended Gordon's residential school. My parents never really talked much about their residential school experience. And then when it started coming out in the media and people started coming forward, my dad would always get upset. He'd get really angry, and we never really understood why until later. I didn't find out about my parents' residential school experience until I told my truth. I had to live my residential school experience in a very open way. Myself and along with 14 girls that I grew up with in Prince Albert at the Indian Student Residence. We took our abuser to jail, to court, and we had to live our deepest shameful secret in a very, very public way. And we had to trust that the justice system was going to be justice. When we ended up going to Queen's Bench, and we had to sit there and look at our abuser. And it was very hard because he would tell his partner or his people that were with him that we were liars and we were telling the truth. And before we went to court, or before I went to court, I had to tell my parents about my experience in residential school. And I didn't really want to talk about it with them. I kind of just threw it in their lap. They're like, oh, hey, I told my parents, I'm going to court tomorrow, by the way. I charged my abuser. I said he sexually abused me when I was a little girl. I said, and we're charging him, and I'm in court tomorrow. And that's how I told my parents. Kind of just dumped it in their lap and left. And when we were at the Queen's Bench trial, my dad had a lot of anger, and I couldn't figure out why. And after the court and that was all done, he told me that he went through abuse in residential school. And so did my mom. And they both shared their stories with me, and they both said, this is the only time I'll talk about it. And I felt honored that they would share that with me. And I know my parents blamed themselves for the abuse that I went through. They kept telling me that they were sorry, and why didn't I say anything? Why didn't I tell? And I was like, I was too scared. Because punishment came harsh in residential schools. You learn to be a perfect kid. You learned which supervisors not to piss off and which ones were nice. And I've met many, many people in this province that have attended the schools that I went to. And it's like a fellowship, my sisters. That's what I call them, they're my sisters. When we took civil action against the government, that was when all the emotional stuff came out. Like I thought, oh, I'll go to court, I'll put my abuser in jail, and I'll be all well, I'll be healed. I wasn't prepared for the anger. I wasn't prepared for the rage that was inside of me. And at my worst, I hurt my dad. And he told me that I needed to get help. So I went to treatment, and I've been sober for 28 years, I think. But I made a choice for my children that I would change for the better. The hardest thing that I've ever had to do in my life is to hug my children, to tell them I love them, and that I'm sorry for what I put them through. It's not easy to talk about stuff, but I've had great mentors. When I first started talking about residential school abuse, I was 20, and nobody was talking about it. It wasn't something that was talked about. And given the opportunity to share my story with other women, the memories we have, it was fun. Like Sandra said, it was healing. We talked, we laughed. We were just sharing in the room last night. One of our presentations we went to, we were all dressed up. We all had dresses on and t-shirts, and only one of us had license. Cosette was our driver. And our car broke down. And there's a saying, Indian never stuck. So all of us women, dressed in our fine clothes, had the hood up on this car and were fixing it to get it started. A farmer stopped by and said, what's going on? And we got the car started, and he was like, well, you didn't need our help. And we got back into the car and we drove, and we were just laughing at ourselves going down the road. There's a lot of laughter. I can look back on my residential school experience and see the fun in it. But the hardest thing was walking through that pain. And that fear is what keeps our people stuck. And we need to start talking about the hard stuff. We need to start feeling, because it's just going to keep us stuck. Reach out for help. My children are where most people are. They have more in common with their dad, because their dad didn't go to residential school, but his dad did. And for me, I brought all of my 3 generations with me, with my children. And I wasn't a very good mom to my children when they were young, because residential school did not teach us how to be parents. You didn't cry for nothing, or they gave you a reason to cry was a thing. And I made a promise to myself that I'd get myself better and make a better parent to my children. And I really, really have learned a lot through my grandchildren and my chapans. I'm able to love again. And for me, that's a big one. I used to run away from my kids when they try to come and hug me. Now it's like, oh, okay. And then it's enough now. And I've had the unique experience of being in a residential school. I wasn't brown, brown, brown. I was light-skinned, blonde hair, and green eyes. Me and my brother, we took a lot of abuse because we were in a sea of brown, brown, brown. And I remember when I was a little girl, when I was 6 years old, I was like, oh, please, God, make me brown, make me brown. And I never did get brown. I don't tan, I burn. So me and my brother, we faced a lot of abuse because we weren't the right color. And then when we started city schools, we could pass. And once they found out that we were from the residential school, they knew we were Native and we got picked on. So we were too white for the Natives and too brown for the white people. And it's looking at this quilt, and I think of how far as a group we've come. I remember when we first started, our biggest fear was becoming grandparents, and now we're all grandparents. And I look at how we have moved forward. I think pretty much we mostly have our license, Cosette. But it's been a really good group of women. Not somebody that, well, we didn't have coffee every day with, but that blanket brought us to sisterhood and healing, and that is what I'm grateful for. And every one of these tells a story, and it's a resource that we can leave, like Sandra said, for the years for future. So if anybody needs to see this, it's on YouTube under the Talking Quilt. And you can do that now, but it'll be a resource that's there from here on end. Thank you.
Just like to thank Rhonda, Sandra, and Eileen, to each one of these wonderful matriarchs that are here with us today. Next, I'd like to call forward Lindsey Boechler, the research manager for the Centre of Health Research, Innovation, and Scholarship, otherwise known as CHRIS. It was Lindsey's relationship with James Smith community that brought about this important honor today. So please welcome Lindsey.
Thank you, Deanna. Also, Cosette would like a chance to speak, but she can't come up on the stage, so after I'm done speaking, if we could bring a microphone down to her. Or you have it ready? Maybe we'll invite Cosette to come speak first, and then I'll follow her, if that's okay.
Hi. My name is Cosette Mustus. I never went to residential schools, but I had my mom that went to one. And the stories that she told us weren't very good stories, I tell you. The things that she went through in the residential school, I couldn't imagine the pain, the feeling that she was going through, being in that place. In the residential, when she was there, my mom spoke Cree, because that's all she knew when she was a young girl. She spoke her tongue, her language. But when she was there in residential school, she was stripped from speaking her language. They used to wash her mouth out with soap. Used to pull her hair, drag her. And that's not the way you treat anybody. She got slapped, got hit, punched, kicked from a residential school that they're supposed to teach about God. They worked with people, ministers, and these other women, nuns, that were supposed to be, my version, were supposed to be nice, caring people. But that time, hearing her story, those weren't very nice people at all. And to this day, I'm very mad about it, that she had to go through it, because my older siblings, they said that they didn't feel that love that a mother was supposed to give to them. I didn't even notice because I was the youngest. I was happy with the house that my mom gave me, and yet it wasn't really that much of a hug, but I was happy with what I got. I didn't understand it, why she wasn't hugging us or why she wasn't kissing us. In there, she said that they weren't allowed to have contact with family, weren't allowed to hug, weren't allowed to kiss anybody, because that was dirty. How are you supposed to show your child the love that you have for them? How are you supposed to do that if that's determined to be dirty? Me, I don't find that way. I love my children so much. Me, back in '98, I lost a child of mine. My husband sitting over there with the same kind of bunny hug as me. We lost a baby in '98. He got run over from a school bus, 5 years old. You know, you teach your children to go in front of the bus, to get into the bus, to get out of the bus. You teach them that because that's the right way. But that very day, December 4th, '98, my boy, my baby, he had his siblings in the bus with him too. And he was doing it right. When he got out of the bus, I guess he never heard the bus driver telling him to go behind, to walk. When you get out the door, to go behind the bus. I guess he never heard that. I don't know. I don't know to this day. But him, being the youngest, and us teaching him to go in front and come in front when you're going in and out of the bus. When he got out, he came from in front of the bus there, and the bus driver drove off. He ended up getting run over from the bus. I seen it with my own 2 eyes. And I seen him, his body, just rolling around under the bus like it was a rag doll. I tried my best to stop the bus driver by waving so he could see me, but he never did see me. And I took off running to the bus. And I thought my baby was alive, but I grabbed him. He was on the ground there. I grabbed him. And I noticed that his head right here, his skull was like cracked. And to this day, when I touch my head here and I talk about it, I feel that numbness. And I was just kneeling towards him. My kids came. They seen their little brother. And I told my kids to go back to the vehicle. And I was talking to my baby, yet he wasn't alive or nothing, but I was kneeling over him with his head right here, holding right here at me, because I was on the ground there. And then all of a sudden I heard his last breath. I thought he was starting to breathe again, but that's the last time I heard him. Take his last breath. And when I say about mothers, my mom, which I thought she was giving me love back then, and I always said that I was always gonna love my children when I had children. But losing one of my children, my youngest one, it tore my heart. It tore my world into a million pieces. And to this day, I still grieve for my boy. It's been 26 years now that I've last held him. He was happy, he was excited to go to school because he ended up getting a new jacket that day. It was old to somebody, but it was new to him, new to me. It was a second-hand jacket, but he was really proud of it. And he wanted so much to go to school, but I didn't want him to go because I had this feeling that it was going to be my last time seeing him, and I tried my best to keep him home that day, but he wouldn't want to stay home because he wanted to go show off his jacket. And that's the jacket that he passed away in. I may have not seen the love from my mom or felt it me. I felt it me, being the youngest. But I sure show it to my kids. I have 4 children. One that passed, my youngest one that passed away, and I have 2 of my oldest boys and my daughter and my baby boy that I lost. And my husband that been married to him for 37 years, going on to 38 years this year. And I don't know how he puts up with me. But he's been, today ever since I've got hurt in November of last year, he's been really so helpful. I'm so grateful for him to this day. Burton, stand up. I'm very honored to be married to him, because nobody really knows, but except for a few people here that are standing here today, my husband plays the organ, he plays the keyboard, and he has such a powerful voice when he sings in Cree. And thank you so much for listening to me. I'm happy, and I'm sorry that I had to. And thank you for listening to me. And I always told myself, crying is part of healing. And it is. And I just had to get some of this tears out of me today, because this is an emotional day for all of us women here. It's been quite a few years ago that we did this blanket, and I'm very honored that I got to work with these women and share our stories. Yeah, there was times that we cried, shed some tears, and a lot of times that we laughed. And we're like that talking pants, we're traveling pants. Traveling pants were a traveling quilt blanket. Okay, thank you very much.
And I believe Julia would like to come up as well.
I didn't want to speak on behalf of my mom until all the other ladies who are here and that made the blanket were gonna speak if they wanted to. Does anybody? No? Okay, that's how I understood it. Thank you, ladies. I was part of the residential school. I wasn't part of the blanket. This was made 20 years ago. And I remember my mom, this is my mom. You see the resemblance? Anyway, my mom never told me about the experiences she went through. Not once has she never told me.
And she only spoke Cree on the phone, never to us.
Yeah. But it was my cousin, my sister Sandra, that told me, I forget how many years ago now. And I had a hard time with that. She only told me one story, and that was good enough. I guess I'm glad the blanket's here so that not only our people that went through it know, and some of our younger generation are just starting to know. But I'm glad it's out here in the public, and that Sandra and Elaine, yeah, that they met up, and that other people besides Indigenous people know what happened to us, because it's really important what happened, because it's a huge part of mental health. You know, like, you see it today on the streets, the homelessness, and like it just carried on and carried on and carried on, and you know, the mainstream need to know why. Oh, why are they there? Why don't they do this? Well, it's not as easy as you think. You know, these children that grew up institutionalized, abused in these child prisons by people that weren't parents, by nuns and priests, and they weren't parents. Then they're the people that they left at home grieving parents that their children were taken. I can't imagine those communities with no children left until they were 18. And then I guess those are some of the things the mainstream need to know more of, why the things are the way they are with our people. The media seems to sensationalize on the things we don't do good. But why? What about all the things we do good? My mom's first day at the residential school, the little boy was brought. The teacher was standing there. I don't know if it was a nun, but the story was told to me as a teacher, but I think the teachers were their caregivers. Well, they didn't have care in them, but them. And I think they were the teachers too, in some schools. And this little boy was called to come and speak to my mom. He was the interpreter. And he was a little older than my mom, as the story was told to me of her experience of her very first day. And that little boy said something to my mom in Cree. And my mom said, I don't know what, she didn't do what she was supposed to do, but then the teacher said something to her in English, and my mom said in Cree, she was 5, so imagine your 5-year-old for the parents that are here, or the grandparents, that love is so strong. Imagine your granddaughter or son or chapan, that's a great saying to your teacher, the only language you know. In Cree, she says, I don't know what you're saying. And the teacher slapped my mom so hard across her face that the teacher's glasses went flying. And that was her first day. And you know, I'm glad my mom never told me the rest, because I don't think I could handle it. And this is my daughter, and this isn't about me. I'm just telling my mom's story, and thank you, ladies, for allowing me to talk. You know, my mom was part of this, and I went, but our nation is grieving. We have a hard time even with the emotion of grieving. Our whole nation is grieving, and it's just a rippling effect when you throw a rock in the lake. And I love our people. There's so many good things you don't know we do. And thank you very much for this time.
Thank you very much, ladies. Elders, distinguished guests, faculty, students, and most importantly, the women who are the heart of this quilt. Thank you for allowing me to share this moment with you today. As mentioned, I'm Lindsey Boechler. I'm a researcher with the Centre for Health Research, Innovation and Scholarship here at Sask Polytechnic. And it's an absolute privilege to stand before you today, not only as a researcher, but as someone who is profoundly moved by the strength, the courage, and the resilience of this group of women that brought this quilt to life. This talking quilt is more than just fabric and thread, which is obvious today. It's a testament to truth-telling, to healing, and the power of shared experience. Each square on this quilt carries a story, not just of hardship, but perseverance, not just of pain, but of the unwavering determination to reclaim voice and history. That's what you're doing, ladies. Applied research is often described in terms of data and frameworks and analysis, but today reminds us that meaningful research at its core is about relationships. This quilt, born from the courage of the women willing to share their truths, teaches us that listening is just important as discovery. Research must be done with communities, not done to them. It is through genuine connection, trust, and shared purpose that we can create meaningful impact. The transfer of this quilt is not simply about safeguarding an artifact. It's about honoring lives. It's about honoring stories and healing journeys of women of James Smith Cree Nation. Your willingness to share, to teach, and to entrust this quilt with future generations is an act of bravery. It ensures that your voices will not be forgotten and will continue to foster learning, reconciliation, and cultural understanding. To the women that created this quilt, I offer my deepest respect. You have shown us what it means to be matriarchs, to turn pain into power, to speak truth, and to create something lasting. Your voices are woven in each stitch of this quilt, and they'll continue to teach, heal, and inspire. And I'm just so happy to see that some of the students and the youth from your community were able to join us today. So thank you very much. Because of your courage, this quilt will not only be safeguarded, but it will also serve as a tool for education, awareness, and reconciliation. Sask Polytech is committed to ensuring that these stories remain accessible for generations to come, that your truths will not be lost. Thanks to the support of Saskatchewan Health Research Foundation's Truth in Action Mobilize funding and the expertise of Sask Polytech's media production team, we have been able to record and preserve the voices of many of the women who stitched this quilt. So you heard from a couple of them today, but we've captured 6 more stories, and they'll be available at www.saskpolytech.ca/talkingquilt. This is where they'll be continued to be shared for all that are willing to listen and learn. In the coming days, the Talking Quilt will be displayed in a special location on campus, offering students, faculty, and community members the opportunity to gather, reflect, and connect. We hope that those who visit will not only look at the quilt, but you'll also feel the stories woven within that quilt. Stories of survival, stories of strength, and the enduring spirit of Indigenous women. As we witness this transition of care today, we reaffirm our responsibility to listen, to learn, and to ensure this quilt remains a living, breathing testament to resilience, to truth, and to the power of relationships and research, in learning and reconciliation. To my friends, my deepest gratitude. Thank you very much.
The truth and honesty and resilience that we have a shared space and a shared history as we work together. And I think about the pain, the hurt, and what comes to mind is akamemo. And if you're truly touched, whether you're a lived experience or have a family that's been a part of the Indian residential school, just take this time to stand up. If you've been a part of the Indian residential school experience or have a family member. Akamemo, I thank you guys. Thank you guys for being here today, that we're not gone and we're not forgotten. I'd like to now call up my co-MC, Anita Cameron.
Good afternoon. My name is Anita Cameron. I'm the manager of Indigenous Student Success here at Saskatchewan Polytechnic. And I would really, really like to thank the ladies, the matriarchs that shared their stories with us here as a community and moving forward, how we can use this as a learning tool as we accept the things in our past as a society here in Canada. And so thank you very much to share those stories. Both my parents attended residential schools, St. Michael's and Fort Capel, and my grandparents attended Marival, and so just thank you for sharing those stories. I'd like now to introduce our next guest speakers this afternoon. Chief Kirby Constant from James Smith Cree Nation, Councillor Barry Sanderson from Peter Chapman, and pardon me? Oh, sorry. And then Adam Whitehead from Peter Chapman, right? All right, thank you so very much.
Good afternoon. First of all, I want to thank the elder for the beautiful prayer and also for the Creator to bring us here safely today. I know these are heavy words, and I just want to start out, Tansi, relatives and friends. Today we come together to celebrate something deeply meaningful, something that carries our stories, our strength, and an unwavering spirit of the women of James Smith Cree Nation. This quilt, crafted by the hands of our mothers, grandmothers, aunties, and daughters, Chapans, granddaughters, is more than just fabric stitched together. It is a testament to our resilience, our history, and the love that binds us as a people. For generations, our women have been the backbone of our families, the matriarchs who held us together through the trials of life. They have carried our traditions, raised our children, and stood firm in the face of hardship. Just like this quilt, their lives are woven with challenges and victories, loss and love. Every step represents the strength of a woman who refused to be broken, who fought for her family, for her community, and for a future where her children can stand around in their identity. But we also must acknowledge the realities that our women continue to face. In 2015, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission put forward 94 calls to action, urging Canada to address the harms of the past and work toward real change. And yet, nearly a decade later, only 11 of those calls have been completed. This is not just a failure of government. It is a reminder that the fight for justice is far from over. Our women, who have survived generations of oppression, still stand at the front lines, demanding accountability, respect, and the rights that are long overdue. Despite this, we do not break. We do not fade like the fabric in this quilt. We come together, bound by love, by culture, and by the knowledge of our ancestors who walk beside us. Our women are more than survivors. They are warriors, leaders, knowledge keepers, and change makers. So today, as we honor this quilt, let it serve as a symbol of who we are, a symbol of endurance, a symbol of endurance, a symbol of unity, a reminder that women of James Smith Cree Nation have always been and always will be the heart of our people. So let us wrap ourselves in their wisdom, their teachings, and their love, just as we wrap ourselves in the warmth of this quilt. And let us never stop fighting for justice, respect, and recognition they deserve. Hi, hi.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Can you hear me good, dear? First of all, I'd like to thank the Creator for bringing this together on this special day here. And I also like to thank the elders for the prayer. I'm Adam Whitehead. I'm a First Nation counselor for the Peter Chapman Band. It was our chief, Robert Head, wanted to be here for our ladies, but unfortunately he had a passing in the family, so he had to take part of that for his auntie. The passing, the elder was his auntie, so he would have been here for you ladies. He wanted me to tell you guys that in person, so I just want to honor these ladies that come together here and made this quilt for SIAS, you know. I mean, Sask Polytech. I'm sorry. It was called SIAS Calcium back then, but, you know, you could see their stories, and when they tell their stories, how much pain they're going through. And it's still there. They're still hurting. But they lived through it for their children. And for our kids today that are here today, they paved the way for us, for our education, through hardship. You know, some of them couldn't even tell their stories, so I want to acknowledge them for them sharing their stories. That's how these stories, when they come out, they give the knowledge to the young people, what they went through, what they endured in those school years. Those are dark times in Canada history, and we can never forget those times. We have to keep reminding our younger generations how they paved the way. You know, they paved the way, and my dad was a residential school survivor, but he took his story to heaven because he couldn't tell it. That's why it's so, sometimes their stories are so painful. You know, and I was a residential school effect, because when my dad went, he wasn't allowed to speak his language, wasn't allowed to cry. So when I grew up as a young man, 5 years old, I was splitting wood, hauling wood, throwing out the slop hill, everything. I was a young man working already, because that's how he was raised in the residential school. He taught that, and I used to remember my mom telling him, they're just kids. You can't treat them like men. But that's how he was taught. My dad was very quiet. When this thing started coming out, the residential school stuff, he still didn't tell his story, but I knew he was hurt. It was hard for him to show that affection. You can hear some ladies talk about their parents. I was raised tough. I was always, and then I finally understand. So, sorry, I'm getting a little emotional, you know, but it's okay. It's okay to cry, you know, because that's the part of healing, one of the ladies said. And I truly believe that, you know. And I always want to honor these ladies for making this quilt. It wasn't easy, but they told their stories and they shared laughs. I can only imagine those stories. As being a leader, I heard most of those stories, and I couldn't imagine having my 6-year-old, 8-year-old sleeping, running away from school, sleeping in a bush in a field, hiding from the police, just to get home. And when they get home, they're only there for a while because they're already getting picked up back to the residential school again. You know, think about that. Close your eyes and think about what they endured. So I always want to honor these ladies and all the residential school survivors and everybody that was affected by it. Even these ladies that are here today, that are in God's kingdom now. Must not forget about them. And with this quilt coming here through Sask Polytech, it's an honor to be a leader, to come and witness this, and to see everybody here, to show that this was built, made by every stitch with tears, heart, and laughter. And we get honored to share the history and give the blanket. And I'm honored to be here with everybody else. So thank you very much from the Peter Chapman Band. I want to say thank you for having me here today, and safe travels home. Aye, aye.
I would just say Thank you, Elder Daniels and Elder Shirley, for your prayers this morning, and everyone that came here to support James Smith ladies, Peter Chapman ladies, Chickasha Basin ladies for a quilt well made, well stitched, well bought together by their heart, their soul, and many, many tears. Many ladies, wherever you go, you're going to follow that same route that these ladies have went through. The tears, the hardship. But you look over your left shoulder and right shoulder, there's somebody there that's going to be lifting you up and carrying you. And that is part of your life. This quilt here is going to be part of Polytech for the rest of its life here. Something that's going to be carrying on through the stories that these ladies brought to life for Polytech and for other future ladies and gentlemen that are here in this Polytech to take home. There's wisdom here, there's teaching here. This is what this is about. This Polytech is teaching and learning the sight, the voice, the touch. I didn't expect to come here to speak on behalf of Chickasha Basin. I became here because of the drum. I am with Digging Bear. I'm also a leader. And I'd like to say on behalf of Chief Calvin Sanderson, he can't make it here. He too is stricken with family. His brother is battling cancer back at home. So each and every one of us, we're battling something, some way. It may not be part of the blanket, but you are here struggling to survive and to carry on. With these young ladies and gentlemen here at Sask Polytech, and everybody that is involved with this blanket, my highest honors to you guys that are coming out here to support these ladies, support their stitches, their grief. It's hard to overcome grief. You may be grieved when you're a little guy right till you're old, but that grief will never go away. It's all in your heart, it's all in your mind. Like the ladies say, tears, laughter, talking. I find talking is one of the best things to do in your life to help your grieving. Because if you're not going to talk about it, you're not going to heal. You become a sore person. So if you have anything on your mind, speak your piece. You'll make your heart feel better. With that, thank you, and God bless you guys. Make sure you guys get home to your home fires today. Take care, hey.
Thank you, Chief Constant and councillors. Our final speaker of the day is Jamie Martins, member of the Legislative Assembly for Martinsville, Blairmore. MLA Martins will bring greetings on behalf of the Government of Saskatchewan.
Thank you. Tansei, Nitsaka-san Jamie Martins. I'm the MLA for Martinsville Blairmore and the Provincial Secretary here in Saskatchewan. And Miigwech, thank you, Deanna. And good afternoon to everyone. I would like to thank Elder Rick Daniels for his greetings and his prayer, and acknowledge all the chiefs and dignitaries here today. What a powerful ceremony. Definitely brought a tear to my eye today. Watching the resilience and the strength of these ladies, you should be proud, absolutely proud. I am honored to be here on behalf of the Minister of Advanced Education, which is Ken Cheveldayoff, the Premier, Scott Moe, and the Government of Saskatchewan. Thank you to community leaders from James Smith Cree Nation for sharing your time wisdom, and culture with us today. I am grateful to be here on Treaty 6 territory and witness this special ceremony. In honor of today's meaningful gift from the James Smith Cree Nation, we appreciate the deep significance it holds in the journey of healing and community support. I would also like to acknowledge the women from the community who have came together to craft this beautiful quilt, the Talking Quilt. Your strength and courage inspires us all. We recognize the quilt's powerful role in preserving the stories of survivors and its continued importance as a symbol of resilience and education. Reconciliation requires action from all of us. Supporting Indigenous learners improve the quality of life for Indigenous peoples and contributes to the growth of our province. Today's ceremony further demonstrates Saskatchewan Polytechnic's commitment to building strong, lasting relationship with Indigenous communities. It also underscores its commitment to Indigenous students. In the last 5 years alone, over 11,000 Indigenous students have enrolled in Sask Polytechnic programs. Those are amazing numbers, but only one part of the story. Increasing Indigenous enrollment, retention, and graduation rates is vital to the future of this province. Our government is committed to working in partnership with post-secondary institutions and Indigenous peoples in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. We support our institutions' actions in incorporating Indigenous ways of knowing, responding to truth and reconciliation calls to action, and indigenizing learning spaces. We know Sask Polytech is committed to all of this and more. As identified in the 2024 to 29 Indigenous Student Success Strategy initiatives, like the Indigenous Recruitment Plan, integrating Indigenous ways of learning, dedicated Indigenous services at all campus highlights Saskatchewan's Polytechnic's efforts to reduce barriers and support Indigenous students. And together, we will build a future grounded on reconciliation, ensuring meaningful education, career opportunities, and sense of community for all learners. I thank you so much for having me here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martins. We appreciate you being here today. That brings our formal program to a close. For members of the media in attendance, those involved will answer your questions to the west side of the stage. I invite the rest of you to join us for networking and a nourishing refreshment break. And I would just like to make a note here. If you are in distress or know of someone who needs support, there are resources available. A helpline for residential school survivors can be reached toll-free at the Indian Residential School Survival Society, 1-800-721-0066, or 24-hour crisis line, 1-866-925-4419. Saskatchewan Polytechnic students can contact counseling services. Saskatchewan Polytechnic employees can contact the Employee Family Assistance Program. Sask Polytech login is required. In closing, I would like to thank the Digging Bear drummers as they bless us with the victory song to end our program. And I ask that you stand, please. Thank you all again for joining us today to mark this important event.